everyone, and welcome to Read This Now, the weekly webcast where Brad, Gustafson, and I usually share two books that we love and we think you should read right now. But this week, our show is special. Why is that, Brad?
That's right. Not today, not today. This week, it is the best of 2021, Jen. So it's not just one and one. I'm bringing 5 books at you. You're coming back with 5 books. And if my elementary math is right, that is 10 books we're going to talk about here for Read This Now, the best of 2021. I have been looking forward to this for weeks, ever since we started talking about this.
I know, me too. I'm so excited. And didn't you have a great time going through our book talks this year to pick the top 5?
It was fun, but it was agonizing. It was so hard to pick about what I wanted to talk about and limit it to 5. You and I went back and forth. We're like, maybe we could do 10 each, maybe 20 each, just because so many good books. But we were disciplined. We are only bringing 5 and 5, people.
That's right, 5 and 5. And I do want to say, just before we start sharing these wonderful books, that they're not in any specific order. It's not like that we're counting down from 5 to 1. These are just our 5 favorite books that we shared on Read This Now this year. And of course, there's lots of other books that we read that we love this year too. So without further ado, are you ready to do this thing?
I'm so ready. And Jen and I, just because we love reading and having fun, we are calling these Nowski.
Yes.
Like hashtag Nowski, Read This Now, Read This Nowski. Each of these 5, or technically each of the 10 recipients, we are deeming Nowski winners, as in books we think you should read right now. Right?
Awesome.
Cool?
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen so that we can. Go ahead, Brad.
Jen, this is like official choreography, like that some of the big award shows have. I mean, I'm feeling legit right about now.
I know. As we should have queued up some of that award music to let you know when your time is up, because I know we could talk about these books forever. So, Brad, you're going to go first, right? And you're going to share.
Here we go. I am saying that a Nowski winner is Battle Dragons by Alex London. I loved how the book starts out with a bang. This is the story where dragons have been domesticated and they're taxi cabs. They help with law enforcement. They even help clear garbage. Like people bring garbage up to the tops of their roofs and dragons will cruise through and incinerate it. There's so much to this book, and it starts out on fire, literally on fire, and Alex does not let up. So this is a definite Nowski winner.
I loved when you book talk this book. Oftentimes you love sci-fi, and so do I, but I find that our reading lives don't often overlap in that area for whatever reason. And this was one of those books when you were reading or talking about it, I was just writing down all of this stuff because I couldn't wait to add it to my to-be read pile as well. So yay, congrats, Alex London.
Woo!
And Battle Dragons, Nowski #1 of 2021. I love it. Okay, so my first offering for a Nowski Award winner is Thankful by Elaine Vickers and Samantha Cotterill. You might remember this book as being the one, Brad, where the illustrations are created entirely of paper. And the illustrator, the artist who did those, created these little dioramas for every spread to capture this young girl's process of creating a paper chain in which she writes down all of the things that she's grateful for. This is a tradition her family has, starting on the first snowfall of winter. When the snowfall starts, then every day until they get to the end of the year, they write a thing that they're grateful for. And the beauty of this book wasn't just literal in terms of the illustrations and the artwork, but also there was just so much beauty in her journey of thinking, oh, I'll never be able to come up with so many things to be grateful for. And then finding that she had more than she could possibly, like she'd need a paper chain that surrounded the world. I love this book so much. And I kept coming back to it because I felt like this was a year that I needed to remind myself that there's a lot to be thankful for. And I felt like I it was the kind of book I wanted to give to lots of people this year. So that is my first Nowski Thankful by Elaine Vickers and Samantha Cotterill.
Love it, love it. My middle name is Diorama. At least it was in middle school. And I'm so glad we're doing this Best of 2021 show because I read so much of what you book talk. This one fell off my radar, and as soon as I saw it, I'm like, yes, I want to. I had said I want to read that book. So this is great as a reminder too for myself, Jen.
I know that you will love this book. Sometimes when I'm reading a book, I think, oh, this is a Brad Gustafson book. And this one is. So I can't wait to hear your thoughts when you get to it. All right, you're up next, my friend.
All right, here we go. Got a picture book coming at you. It's What the Road Said by Cleo Wade. And I'm gonna go bold and say this isn't just a best of 2021 book. This is one of my all-time favorite picture books. I think about this book a lot, Jen, and I forget what I said on the original show about it, but what I remember right now in my heart is it's like two best friends having a conversation, except one of your friends is the road. It's life, and it's asking you questions, and it's encouraging you, and it's helping you, and it's witty, and it's endearing. It is so good, not only just as a read, but I use it actually as like a staff, a connection, a workshop book with people. It's that solid for any age audience. Classic case of kindergarten to 120 years old.
Don't you
Oh,
find?
I'm sorry. I'm trying to catch my wings on this award show stuff. That is my second Nowski winner. How'd I do that?
Woohoo! I love it. Congrats.
Oh,
To that author and illustrator. Let me just say, don't you find as a reader, as an educator, sometimes it's hard to separate your educator brain from your just personal reader brain. And sometimes books just stand out to you as ones that other teachers' hearts need, right? Like it's not just one for kids, but that the educators, their hearts need this book too. And that one certainly sounds like it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. What do you got, Yay! Jen?
Okay, so number 3 on my Nowski list is Red, White, and Whole by Rahani LaRocca. And I have to tell you, I think 2021 has been the year for the novel in verse, so much so that I'm giving a hint here, 2 of my 5 Nowski Award winners are novels in verse. There have been so many great ones this year, and this one stands out among them. This beautiful book is about a young girl named Reha who is, struggling as a lot of teenagers do to balance the expectations between her parents who happen to be first-generation Indian Americans and her friends who look a lot more like the pop culture that she sees on MTV. This book is set in the 80s, and so those people who were alive during that time will get a kick out of a lot of the 80s cultural references. But both of those worlds are turned entirely upside down when her mother is diagnosed with leukemia. And the journey that she goes through, the deals that she makes with herself and with, the universe to try to save her mom are so relatable and heartbreaking. I love this book so much. It broke your heart, but then also left you feeling hopeful about the world too at the same time. And it's one of those books where it wasn't until I read it that I fully understood the cover. And so the cover means something as you're looking at it without having read it, but then when you are finished with it, it means something else. I loved it so much, and I wanted everyone to read it right now then. And if you hadn't had a chance, now's your chance to pick it up. It's Red, White, and Whole by Rahani LaRocca, and it's my third Nowski Award winner for 2021.
This wouldn't be a show if we didn't drop a name or two. So I just have to say thanks to you and our friend John Shu. As I've been book talking books and reading actually John's new book that's coming out soon. This is a School. I've been talking to grades and classes about reading and the meaning behind the pictures and even the cover, under dust jackets, but then the interior pages. What's the technical term for that?
The liner pages.
Yes, thank you. And anyway, I don't think I ever had conversations or that deep awareness before you and John and so many others were talking about it. So when you start talking about that with this book, it makes my heart happy, and I can't wait to check that out as well.
John Shu is correcting me right now, so I have to correct myself. Liner pages is one way to call, but I think he would say end papers. And so I want to make
Got it.
sure that I get that correct, or he will take away some of my points. And so I don't want that, end papers. I love that
No,
so much.
no
Okay.
one can ever take points away from you, Jen. I'm always putting you on the spot, and you're always delivering.
Yeah, I thank you for giving me a few more points.
Yeah. So my next Nowski winner goes to an author who has visited Greenwood. She swung by on a trip she had and was so cool. She even dropped off some, I think, signed books for our little free library outside for kids. But that's not why. That's not why she earned the Nowski Award. She earned it for taking up space. An incredible read. The main character, Sarah, she's a basketballer, very, very talented, but this complex plot. Sarah's mom has a challenging, complex, unhealthy relationship with food that impacts Sarah and their whole family. And I just love how Allison brings a really important message that I haven't read a ton of books about yet. And just being a girl dad and being a principal who has lots of kids I care about at the school, I just love that they can read this and get information and not feel alone and be mentored on so many different levels. So I'm so thankful that this book is in the world.
Oh, I love that. And I think this year has been a year, not only I talked about novels in verse, but also books that speak to this kind of issue, because like you, I haven't read that many books dealing with this either yet, Brad. And so I get excited when books like Taking Up Space, and actually one of the books I'm going to book talk next, that deal with similar topics. So congrats to Allison for her Nowski. And I will transition right over here then to Starfish by Lisa Phipps, which is a book that lives kind of in a parallel universe to Taking Up Space, in the sense that this is a book about a young girl who is not only dealing with issues, or let me just say this, who's not just dealing with bullying from her classmates and people in her school because of her weight, but actually dealing with that same kind of bullying from family members. Starting on her 5th birthday, she is given the nickname of Whale because she dares to do a cannonball at her own birthday party at the pool party. And because it causes a big splash, and she happens to be wearing a bathing suit that has like an orca on the front, people start calling her Whale. And that nickname sticks with her all throughout her school career. And as the book opens, it lists these rules that she's come to live by, which are rules to help her from taking up space. To use the cover of Alison Gerber's book, or the title of Alison Gerber's book, Ellie, who is the protagonist of Starfish, tries to live in a way where no one will notice her, where she takes up as little room as possible. But through her journey in this book, she learns to not only love the nickname Whale, because whales are cool animals, but to adopt a new moniker for herself, which is the idea of being a starfish, which spreads out and takes up all the room that it wants because it's beautiful and perfect just as it is. And Starfish by Lisa Phipps is another one of this year's great novels in verse, and one of my favorite books of all time. It absolutely deserves a Nowski. This book has lived in my heart since the moment I picked it up, and I share it every single time that I get the opportunity.
Thank you, Jen. This book is on the top of my to be read pile. Yeah, thank you. I can't wait for my next Nowski designee. The Last Gate of the Emperor.
Bum, bum, bum.
Why? Sorry, I was being mystified by our special effects here. Thank you, Jen, for having that appear. By Kwame I should have looked this up ahead of time. Mobali and Prince Joel Makkonen. I read this book, Jen, and it is ridiculously good. Kind of like the little quote or the blurb here. Never knew I wanted or needed to read a book that takes place in futuristic Ethiopia, but I did not want it to stop. It was so cool. And one of the aspects I loved, there was so much to it, like it never stopped. It was smart. It wasn't just a plot that kind of meandered, but it was so smart and put together in a really smart way. It's hard for me to explain that, but there were also this overlay. There's this game that's taking place that the younger kids are playing, and society kind of says you should be playing this virtual reality game, and they're all over the city playing it. But it turns out that that game includes clues and pieces to saving the world. It's just ridiculously smart. So that is definitely one in a year where it was tough to choose. This is one that made the cut. It is in the inaugural class of Nowski recipients.
I love that. I love that inaugural class. So I hope that this is going to become a yearly tradition. I love it so much. I haven't read this book, but I have read others by Kwame Mabali. And I have to say, I think he is like one of the bright new stars in literature for young people. Everything you said about this book equally describes the others that I read. So I'm real excited to pick this one up because I think he is brilliant. Speaking of brilliant, I had to choose this book for a Nowski Award winner, not simply because I adored it and because it was like shortlisted for a National Book Award, but because it also resulted in one of my favorite book talks from our show, because this was the book, if you'll remember, that led us to have this discussion about who kind of owned the legend of Paul Bunyan, because I grew up thinking that Paul Bunyan was folklore from the Pacific Northwest. You grew up thinking it was folklore from Minnesota. And I remember in the program, we were both like, hey, wait, Paul Bunyan's mine. And that was a perfect metaphor for this book, which tells the story of a young girl who's growing up as a cook in a logging community at the turn of the last century. And in order to deal with some of the really difficult top things that she's facing, she creates her own sort of heroine, Auntie Poe, who is essentially the legend of Paul Bunyan. She even has her own ox to help her face and deal with the things that are obstacles standing in her way in her real life. And really one of the underlying messages of this book is that, you know, that's why we create folklore. We create folklore and these legends to help us understand the world and our place in it, like peoples in it. That's why folklore is created. And yet some stories, some folklore images like Paul Bunyan endure and people take ownership of them, and others often that were created by historically marginalized communities like Auntie Poe and the Chinese, we don't know anything about. And so the whole book sort of not only teaches us about this obscure time in history that maybe a lot of people don't know about, but also helps us to think about how folklore is universal and yet some stories are privileged over others. It's a really interesting and unique book, and I loved our conversation around it. And I don't think enough people have read it, so I hope that a lot of people will pick it up and read it now.
Thanks for bringing that up again. And there hasn't been a day that's gone by since we did that original show where I haven't seen Paul Bunyan in Minnesota and thought of you. I'm like, I should send Jen a picture of this. And I still do believe Paul Bunyan is from Minnesota, but that's okay that you somehow mistakenly think otherwise.
I love it. I love that this could be a battle royale. We'll have to start these text chains on Paul Bunyan now. I cannot wait. All right.
My fifth and final Nowski Award designation. Do you like how I'm, building that up? It goes to Our Table by Peter H. Reynolds. And this is an exquisite and beautiful story about a table that shrinks over time, and a family notices that it's shrinking for lots of reasons. They're busy and they're interested in other things, and they kind of take their eye off the table. and a young girl notices, and she longs for the time when her family came together to break bread around that table. And she tapped into each of her family members' strengths and passions and who they are now, not wishing just that things would return to who people used to be, but she looked at who they are now and who they had grown into and met them there. And then they built the table together. And this is another book that I just love no matter what, but we also read it as a staff because it connected to so many things that, like, as we're working through the pandemic, just like who we want to be and what we want to build together and what we want to be our foundational table. And then also the things that maybe are, maybe it's just the centerpiece or the, decoration or things that aren't as important, and just having those conversations. So it really is incredible. And it's an honor for me to talk about it again, because this is one of those few books that I think about so often. It's just a treat. And I hope everyone has a chance to read this now. That is truly the epitome of a Nowski winner. I think it embodies the spirit of the Nowski.
I think you're right. I think you absolutely are correct. I love how the Nowskis are becoming more and more legit with every talk. I love it. I love it. Brad, you and I had a lot of conversations about this book after you book talked it, and after you told me about the PD you did, I went on to use it in similar ways, because I think it's kind of the perfect example of how a picture book can be used as a metaphor for things that are truly important and that are kind of so big picture that sometimes it's hard to conceptualize them. It's hard to make them actionable, but a picture book like this with this type of metaphor, can help you take what your core ideals are and turn them into actions in a way that I think is really profound. So kids will love this book. I encourage people to read this, of course, with kids, because they're the target audience. But it's another one that I think educator hearts need as well. So yay, I'm so glad you picked it.
Well said. I can hardly wait to hear your grand finale winner for the best of 2021.
It was so hard to pick just 5, and I probably changed this last one about 100 times because it was so hard to choose, but I ended up going with Too Bright to See, which is actually by Kyle Lukoff, not Alex London. I have a typo on my slide deck. Oh, apologies to Kyle Lukoff.
All the big award shows, they're such big productions. There's always at least one error. So it's just good to know that we are that legit.
Please, if Kyle Lukoff for some reason becomes one of our 3.5 viewers, then please know that was an error only in my fingers, not in my heart. So that being said, Too Bright to See is, like you mentioned earlier, not just a Nowski Award winner for this year, but probably one of the best books I've ever read for young people, period. And I think will continue to live in my heart. Again, it was a National Book Award list finalist, which was no surprise because this book does something really unusual. Not only is it sort of on the face a ghost story, it's about 2 kids, really, Bug and Moira, who are transitioning into middle school from elementary school. 2 friends, they've been best friends for a long time and lived their lives interconnected. But as this transition starts to occur, Moira seems to be doing it with just great skill and nimbleness. She suddenly starts to have interest in things like boys and makeup, and suddenly feels like a fully fledged middle schooler right away. Whereas Bug feels a little more stuck. And it doesn't help that Bug's uncle Roderick recently died and appears to be haunting their shared home. Bug is so concerned about these things that are happening at their house and that they hardly have time to worry about what middle school is going to be about until faced with Moira, who seems to only be concerned about what life will be like in middle school. The thing that I love most about this book, though, is even though that transition from elementary to middle school is a great thing for books that are geared toward middle grade readers to be about, because that's a shared experience that everyone has, right? One of the things that the most important and vital thing to me about this book is that it provides readers with the opportunity to see an LGBTQIA experience, because Bug is trans, in which Bug goes through understanding themselves with a fully supportive family, a fully supportive friend community, and a fully and 100% supportive school community. Bug never has to face hate. Bug never has to face homophobia or transphobia. Bug is met with love every step of their journey. And while homophobia and transphobia and hate are real, and it's important for kids to be able to see what dealing with trauma looks like, it's also really important for kids to see what loving, caring, supportive family and community units look like as well. And I don't see enough books like that. I'm so glad that Kyle Lupoff chose to create this book in this way. It's called Too Bright to See, and it is my final Nowski of 2021.
Thank you, Jen. Well said. And I'm going to be one of those speakers on the award shows who goes off script and everyone cringes and is like, oh my gosh, what's happening? What do we do? Are you able to flip, keep the show going, but flip to just you and I talking?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. Okay, nice. Wow. See, that's how good she is. So I know this isn't a huge thing that you love doing, but I loved your book this year. So I'm going to try to ask or beg that you'll at least mention it in a second. I'll go first to prime the pump. Jen and I both love readers. I'll just speak for myself, although, and we care, and we both put out books this year that we think can help people, that I think can help. So mine just came out. It is The 6 Literacy Levers, helping you create a community of reading for your kiddos. And Jen, if you wouldn't mind, what do you got?
Well, first, I just want to say that, the 6 literacy levers are kind of an honorary Nowski for me. It's definitely a book that I think that you should read right now. And as a matter of fact, I mean, I say this all the time, it's like bragging, but I had the opportunity to read an early draft, and I'm working through a finished copy right now. And it's hard for me to think of many other books that approach literacy in a way that's not just actionable, but that really, really focuses on the reader's heart. So I can't encourage people enough to pick up that book as they recover over the winter break after a tough semester. I actually think that your book would be the kind of shot in the arm that they need to start the spring semester anew. So please pick up The 6 Literacy Levers by Dr. Brad Gustafson, now an honorary member of the inaugural class of Nowski. So
I shouldn't feel floored to receive an award that we just made up, but I'm feeling really great now. Thank you, Jen.
Isn't it lovely to be? It's such an honor to be nominated by myself.
I love it. Oh, man.
I don't have a copy of Developing Digital Detectives handy, but I'll just say that book by not just me, but my dear friend Darren Hudgens is, for me, an attempt to help educators tackle what I feel is the most pressing and urgent problem that we face as a species, and that is the influence of information that has been designed to manipulate and to fool us and, frankly, divide us as a people, so that we're not really able to solve some of those big crises that always feel to be looming. And our book is an attempt to do that focuses on, again, in an odd way, the human heart and the human mind. Mischief and malinformation are human problems. And so our book is an attempt to decenter technology and recenter human behavior, while giving educators lots and lots and lots of resources with which to do that. So I hope that you read it now as well.
Yeah, and Developing Digital Detectives, in addition to being a read that just floored me, the companion website, which you and Darren referred to as the Evidence Locker, am I right on that?
That's right.
It's so robust, and the actionable tools that educators can put into use, not just for themselves, but with students, it will truly knock your socks off. And I'm not surprised you didn't mention that because you're so humble, but I had to put that out there. It is worth a peek.
Thank you so much, my friend. And thank
Yeah.
you for an amazing year of reading yet again. And thank you to our 3.5 viewers. Without you, this show would be meaningless. It would just be Brad and I talking to each other, which we love, but is more fun because we have you. So this is our final show of 2021, but we will see you in the new year. Until then, y'all, happy reading, everyone.
Yeah. Congrats on a successful Nowski ceremony, Jen. We did it. We did it. Thanks, everyone.